Mr. Thomas Frigård is a senior journalist with over 12 years of experience working at the Romnes newspaper based in Oslo. He heads a regional chapter of one of the Norwegian journalist unions. Mr. Frigård also serves as a member of the Transparency Commission for the Norwegian media.
First of all, I want to congratulate you on the RTI. It's a very good act, I think. And I have to thank you for inviting me here. I was also here in 2016. Had a very pleasant stay in Sri Lanka, and I see some familiar faces in the audience today, so that's great. I work as a journalist, and I use the RTI as systematically to find and create journalism. And today I'm going to tell you a little about how the proactive disclosure, how we can use that as journalists to find interesting articles and stories. But first, information without the RTI. We've heard some stories about that. And how do you get information? You can get information when it comes down to goodwill, or you have to rely on leaks. The trouble with leaks is that you don't know if they're reliable. And I've heard stories, I've heard someone saying here that it's the better way to have someone give you information, you use the sources that you always used. The trouble is that you don't know if it's quite reliable, because there's always a motive. And only with the force of law you can understand and get information that are more reliable. Even a public officer has a motive to deny you information. At least he can have that. And I think this is maybe not the best democratic way. I had to take this into the presentation. I love this quote. It's from Joseph Pulitzer. There's not a crime, there's not a dodge, there's not a trick, there's not a swindle, there's not a vice which does not live by secrecy. To me, that's a universal fact. So, what you see here is the Norwegian RTI. Offentlig lova. It's a strange name, by the way. It was first issued in Norway in 1970. And we have analyzed, there's a company has analyzed the use of the RTI. And from 2010 to 2014, the number of filed RTI requests increased from 61,000 in 2010 to over 200,000 in 2014. And that since 2014, the number has stabilized. We're talking about around 200,000 RTI requests. And Norway has 5.5 million people. And the fact is that who are using the RTI in Norway? Mainly it's journalists. And if journalists do a good job using the RTI, then maybe the rest of the people won't find a need to use it. That's why we have to be the figureheads of the RTI. And we also see that 75% of the filed requests are granted. 7 to 8% are partially granted, and 16 to 17% are denied. And about 50% of the RTI complaints lead to more information. Then I can brag and say that about 70% of my complaints lead to more information. So I think I do a good job, maybe. An interesting question is, where do you get information? The RTI is a fundament for a free press and a catalyst for a transparent and democratic society. But once we have the right to get information, where do you get it and how? These are interesting and very important questions. And now I'm going to tell you a little story about how the proactive disclosure in Norway how it is and how we use it as journalists. I'm going to tell you, show you a couple of examples of some articles that I've made out of using this system. In Norway, 121 public bodies has created an electronic post journal published on the internet. And you see a picture of it on the right side. In the post journal, each document received or sent from office is filed in the system. And they have to do this. It's called the archive law. And this system makes you, it makes it possible to search, open and download most of the documents on the website. And it's pretty much the same as we heard from my colleague from Mexico. And the documents are searchable on date, names, title, and journal numbers. And there are, of course, some documents are not public, and the legal basis for the secrecy must be given on the website. And if you see on this this picture, the icons on the left side, they're clickable. You can click on them, and you can see it as a headline. And I've searched out now, just for an example, violation of law. Very interesting. Journalists are always interested in violation of law. All these titles says something about violation of law. So you can click on the icon, and then every document on this file will come up. Then you can click on them, and you can download them or print them. If there is a legal basis for the document to be kept secret, it will say, normally a very used article is what you in Sri Lanka have Article 5. In Norway is Article 13, private information. Then you can click on the blue icon on the right side. Then you automatically file a request. And then within 5 days, you have to get an answer. Either you get the document or it's denied. Then you can complain. And I say search and you will find. This is, and this way you can detect interesting documents that you can request. And the document you see on the right side is kept secret due to personal information, as I was telling you about, like the Article 5 in the RTI of the Sri Lanka. The document's title says Supervision and Administrative Reaction. I don't know if any one of you would have responded on that title, but I thought this was very interesting. What is this? So I requested the document, and I requested a document where the personal information was blackened out. And I think you can do that in Sri Lanka as well. If not, maybe I'm wrong. And I received the document where the personal information was blackened out. And what I received led to additional requirements. There were more documents in this document. And finally, I had a story to tell. It was a nurse who had stolen medication from patients in a hospital. A nurse was under suspicion for stealing more than 700 narcotic drugs from the patients in a hospital. The police was investigating the case, and I would never have found this story without the RTI. They wanted to keep it secret, but the documents led to information. We also could find out in the documents that she was fired, even before the police had concluded. The police was still, actually the police is still investigating the case as we speak. But the nurse was fired, and the state demanded that the nurse should lose her authorization. This is not a big disclosure, maybe, but this is everyday journalism with simple measurements. Or you can make this in a simple way, and you can create good journalism out of it. The next article is about lie about the biofertilizer. What you see on this picture is, of course, the Norwegian snow. We had 2 meters this winter, so very cold. But this is the most modern biological gas plant in Northern Europe. Out of garbage, the factory produced biological gas for buses and biofertilizer used in agriculture. This is a very big environmental project, and they are always telling you the great stories about how well functioning it is, and that people from all over the world are coming to this place to see what they're doing, because it's only a success story. It's told a story of great success. The factory is owned by the local government in Oslo. And Oslo was aiming to sell the biofertilizer to about 100 medium big farms nearby the factory. Oslo communicated that they sold huge amounts of fertilizer. And according to the Oslo officials, the demand was much bigger than the supply. Actually, they told me we are selling a shitload of this biofertilizer, which was quite funny. But something seemed fishy to me. Why don't I get the more information about the economics, the numbers, the sale? So, in Norway we have Article 9. It gives you the right to ask for assembling information. This means that if the public officer must create a document with the information you ask for, given that the information exists elsewhere in the system. And I like this article so much because it gives you so many possibilities and ways to get information. I even wrote a poetry about it. If you want to make something fine, use Article 9. Great poetry. So I requested a copy of all the delivery contracts with the farmers. I requested an overview of the economics and the sale of biofertilizer. But it was not so very simple. Normally you should have, within 5 days, you should have the information. If not, you're entitled to make an appeal. Sorry. Well, Oslo wasn't that kind to me. I was ignored for 7 months. And I was trying to get in contact with them. I was trying to complain. They didn't answer. It's like I didn't exist. But 7 months later, the government still had not answered the request. I filed many complaints, but didn't help. The commission pushed the local government to answer. So I had to go up to the commission. And the commission tried, you have to answer, and they didn't answer. You have to answer, they didn't answer. And this, time goes by. But I finally got the document that I've asked for. You can see it now on the right side. There's a lot of numbers. And the numbers are based on Norwegian kroners. And the story I got was, I think it was pretty good. It shows that the government in Oslo had paid $3 million to get rid of the fertilizer. So it wasn't an income. They said they sold a shitload of it. Yeah, well, I realized why. And I guess there was a reason that the authorities did not want to give me the details about these economics. The cost was 20 times higher than the income. Okay, it's an environmental project, so maybe we have to pay it. But anyway, this information needs to come out. We need to know about it. Well, I can see that the taxpayers of Oslo had paid almost $3 million American to get rid of this product. So what I'm trying to tell you is the RTI is a perfect tool. The right to information must assure access to information. And the digital platforms lead and give us many possibilities. Easy access equals more democracy. And as a final statement, I can say that when I hear that people of India, people of Sri Lanka, even people in Norway, they are scared to file an RTI. And that's why we as journalists must do this job for them. We must be the figureheads of the RTI. So use the RTI. Thank you.